A man won an Olympic gold medal while his own coaching staff injected him with rat poison. Twice. And in between the doses, they poured brandy down his throat because somebody was worried the rat poison alone wasn't pulling its weight. His name was Thomas Hicks. By the end, he was gray, hallucinating, and being carried by two grown men in suits while a crowd cheered him on. He also wasn't the first person across that finish line. The guy who beat him is somehow a bigger disaster than the poisoning, and I'm saving him. We'll get there. 32 men lined up in the middle of the afternoon. 90 degrees, dirt roads, 7 hills, a couple of them steep enough that you'd walk them on a normal day carrying groceries. And in front of the runners, cars, officials, doctors, reporters, all of them driving ahead of the pack in automobiles, which meant every man in that race spent the entire afternoon running inside a rolling wall of dust. Not near the dust, inside it, breathing it. That detail comes back, and it comes back badly. Within the first hour, one runner started coughing up blood on the side of the road. The dust had shredded the lining of his stomach. They found him lying face down in a field, and he nearly died there, during a foot race because of dirt. Another man got chased a full mile off the course by wild dogs. Not nipped at. Chased. Herded into a cornfield by a pack of animals while officials watched from a moving vehicle and did nothing. And on that entire route, there was exactly one place to get water. One. A tower 6 miles in. That wasn't a budget problem or an oversight. That was a decision somebody made on purpose. And I'll tell you why later, because the reason is significantly worse than the decision. Which brings us back to our guy. 14 miles in, he wants to lie down. He's begging for water. And his trainer, a man riding comfortably in a car watching him suffer, says no. He's permitted to rinse his mouth out with warm distilled water and spit it back out. That's it. That's the hydration strategy. 5 miles later, he's staggering sideways. So the trainer decides it's time for medicine. He mixes 1/60th of a grain of strychnine sulfate, indeed rat poison, the actual chemical, the stuff you buy to kill a rodent in your wall, into a raw egg white. And he feeds it to a man who has been running in 90-degree heat for 2.5 hours. And it works. That's the genuinely horrifying part. The color comes back into his face. His stride comes back. He starts running again because strychnine in tiny doses makes your muscles fire, whether your brain authorized it or not. Then it wears off, so they do it again. More strychnine, 2 more egg whites, and this time a shot of brandy, because someone in that car looked at a man being actively poisoned and thought, what he needs is liquor. The last few miles, he isn't really running and he isn't really conscious. His skin goes ash gray. His eyes stop tracking. He becomes convinced the finish line is another 20 miles away and starts asking strangers for something to eat. His handlers grab him under both arms and physically move him over the final hills, which, and I want to be extremely clear here, is not a thing you are allowed to do in a marathon. Everyone watched. Nobody stopped it. And his trainer wrote all of this down afterward. Proudly, hold that thought. Now, the man who crossed the line first. 9 miles in, he cramped up and quit. Sat down in the dirt. A car came by, he climbed in, and he rode. For 11 miles. Waving at the runners he passed, then the car broke down. Obviously, it broke down. So he hopped out, feeling extremely refreshed after his nap in an automobile, and jogged the rest of the way in. He arrived at the stadium so far ahead of every other human being that the crowd lost its mind. They threw a wreath on him. The president's daughter was standing right there holding the gold medal, in the actual motion of handing it to him, photographs being taken. And someone in the crowd started screaming that they'd seen this man in a car. His defense? He was joking, that was it. He claimed the entire thing was a practical joke that he was still in the middle of performing, and that he'd been just about to explain, right at the moment the medal touched his fingers. Which brings me to my favorite human being in this entire catastrophe. A Cuban mailman had shown up to run this race. He'd funded the trip himself by running laps around a public square back home and asking people for donations. Then he gambled all of it away en route and arrived with nothing. So he ran the marathon in his street clothes: long trousers, long-sleeved shirt, and dress shoes. A competitor felt so bad for him that he took a pair of scissors to the man's trousers at the starting line and cut them off at the knee. And he was doing great, legitimately in contention, chatting with spectators in broken English as he went, because he was having the best day of his life. Then he got hungry. He hadn't eaten in something like 40 hours, so he spotted an orchard, hopped the fence, and ate a pile of apples. They were rotten. He seized up with stomach cramps, laid down in the grass in the middle of an Olympic event, and took a nap. He woke up and finished fourth. Fourth, in dress shoes, after food poisoning and a scheduled sleep. He beat men who never stopped moving. Of the 32 who started, 14 finished. The winner had to be carried off the field. He'd lost 8 pounds during the race, needed hours of medical attention before anyone would let him leave, and the doctors said flatly that if the course had been any longer, he would have died on it. He never ran another marathon as long as he lived. Now, that water tower, the one water stop in a 30-kilometer race through a dust cloud in 90-degree heat. The man who organized this whole thing did that deliberately. He was curious about dehydration. He wanted to observe what happens to the human body when you deny it water during extreme exertion, and he decided that an Olympic final was a perfectly reasonable venue for that experiment. The runners were the experiment. Nobody told the runners. And this all took place as a sideshow attached to a World's Fair, stretched over months, which is why the whole thing has the organizational rigor of a county pie contest. But the best part, the part that tells you exactly how much the world learned, is the trainer's report. He published a full account of the race afterward, and his conclusion was not, "We nearly killed a man for a piece of metal." His conclusion was that the event conclusively demonstrated that drugs are of great value to athletes on long journeys. He recommended it. He wrote it up as a success story. He watched a human being turn gray and start hallucinating food, and his professional takeaway was, "More of this, please." It took another 60 years before anyone got serious about banning any of it. So the next time somebody tells you the old days were about pure sportsmanship and noble competition, remember that the pinnacle of international athletics was once a dust-choked death march, where the winner was drugged by his own staff. The runner-up drove, and a mailman in loafers took a nap and still beat 2/3 of the field. History isn't inspiring. History is a bunch of guys in suits standing around a dying man going, "Should we give him another one?" If you enjoyed watching the Olympics embarrass themselves in slow motion, hit subscribe, because Sticky Storm has an entire archive of moments exactly this stupid, and every single one of them actually happened.